Let's cross now to New York and speak to Fox contributor Mr. Joe Concha. Find out what's going on. Joe, very good evening to you. Welcome back to the Independent Republic of Mike Graham. State of the Union addresses were usually, as far as I knew when I was living there, you know, a big deal. Everybody got round the television, everybody watched it because it was a kind of a moment in time that you wanted to see how your country was doing. For the first time now, I think people are going to want to see how the president is doing, right?
Mike, I think he'll do just fine. And I know that's a bit of a surprise of an answer coming from me. I'm usually very critical of the president. I'm with the majority of Americans who don't think that he's doing a good job. But if you put Joe Biden out there, you rest him for about a week, like they did over the past week, where he had exactly one event on his schedule. Right. Otherwise, he had nothing on it. He was off at Camp David for 4 days. You put him in front of a teleprompter for 45 minutes, and you're a pro. You've been doing this for years. I've hosted shows before. Reading a teleprompter, if you see the text enough, even if you're Joe Biden 81, if you're just being asked to read, he'll do okay, right? And that's what I mean. Like, setting the bar too low, I think, gives him an easy shot to jump over it. But let me ask you this, Mike. Can anyone remember any State of the Union over the many, many decades that resonated to the point where you quote a line back from it today? I mean, I couldn't tell you one thing or promise Joe Biden has said in his last 3 addresses to the joint session of Congress. So we keep hearing how this is going to be a game changer, a time for the president to reset his campaign, to reintroduce himself to the American people at a time when he's badly trailing Donald Trump in key swing states right now. But I think after a day, this thing is forgotten. A lot of hype, a lot of analysis afterwards, and then we're right back to where we started from.
And I guess if you're on Biden's kind of advisory committee, if there is such a thing, you will be slightly nervous, because even though I take your point and you're right, he should be able to manage to read an auto cue for 45 minutes. But, you know, there is still a risk putting him out there live, is there not? Or maybe they record it, I don't know. There is a risk, just in case. Just in case he kind of just drops the ball, even for a second. I mean, we saw that clip from yesterday where he kind of froze in front of the collective number of journalists asking him questions. And it's just those tiny little clues as to what's going on in his mind that I think worries people.
Look, he very easily could stumble, not rhetorically, but physically. That could happen. We've seen it happen before. But in the end, I think that, again, if he just has to read, when he froze yesterday, that's because he was taking questions. And therefore, he doesn't have a script to read off of. He has to think for himself extemporaneously on the fly. Even though he's been president for 3 years, you'd think he'd know the policies and answers to questions by now. But instead, he's, as you said, I'm going to get in trouble, then doesn't take any questions. If we were talking right now, Mike, about a 45-minute press conference with actual journalists in the room and not cheerleaders asking him tough questions, I would say it's doomsday for Joe Biden. But in this case, there won't be any questions. He goes up, does the speech, leaves, and then I can guarantee you this, at least 3 or 4 prominent U.S. commentators here, not named me, is going to say that was the speech of Joe Biden's life tonight. Joe Biden showed America. He's still got it. I guarantee they've already thought about it. It's pre-written. That I can guarantee you.
Yeah, it's like those sports commentators that write down loads of words that they know they're going to use during the course of a game. They've already got it panned out for when the thing happens that they may or may not know that they can predict. But he's done something a bit unusual before this one, and this is a new one on me. He's put out a video which has been recorded with previous actors who have played the president. Have a look at this.
I never spoke to so many presidents all at one time. Some of you might know what a big speech like I have to do is coming up State of the Union. Any advice you have for me in delivering my speech?
Well, sir, in my capacity as president, all I had to deal with was a meteor.
Mr. President, from my experience of being commander-in-chief, I learned that having a loving partner changes everything.
Yeah. That's from a former sex addict, that one. I don't know how useful that piece of advice will be to Joe Biden. But, you know, he's obviously... They're obviously trying to come up with some ideas in the White House to make him more appealing, aren't they?
Yes, and it's always on tape, right? Heavily edited stuff.
Yeah.
I can guarantee you this. I will spot that Joe Biden maybe knew who Morgan Freeman was. After that, he probably was thinking, why is Kirk Douglas up there? And when did he ever play a president? Right? Like, because Michael looks just like Kurt when Kurt was his age at this point. And then everybody else who was up there, he has no idea who they were. So I guess it's supposed to work, but we're a country with serious problems and we need serious people to solve them, to quote Andrew Shepard, who Michael Douglas played in An American President. And to do this stuff combined with, I don't know if you talked about the Cookie Monster earlier this week, where you have the president retweeting or talking about how the Cookie Monster is mad that his cookies are shrinking because of shrinkflation. This is kid stuff. Right. And I'm sorry, it ain't going to work. People see this and say, are you serious? Right. This is what we're doing? You're taking advice from fake presidents on how to give a speech? Right. It's just stupid. That's the only way I can put it.
But this is the trouble, though. Politicians, I think, on both sides of the Atlantic, whenever they're in a hole, they seem to think that some kind of gimmick is going to get them out of it. Over here this week, we had Rishi Sunak, the Prime Minister, and his incredibly wealthy wife, who's one of the richest women in the world, sitting on a sofa together, talking about who makes the bed, who does the dishes, who's better at cooking. These are people who are richer than Croesus and that can never, ever imagine what ordinary people do. And they've then given an interview to this kind of high-end women's magazine, and it's all very cringy and horrible and ghastly, and nobody is going to vote for him based on that.
Precisely, because it's insulting to sane and sober people's intelligence. Right. You think anybody's making beds over there in that couple, right. All right, or is cooking for that matter? It's elitist, it's out of touch. And these sort of gimmicks, you're right, they simply do not work because Americans know they want to see. They want to see a gimmick tonight during the State of the Union where it's not a gimmick. It's Joe Biden reversing an executive order to stop wall construction. And he says, let's start building the wall again. Let's reinstate remain in Mexico. Let's stop catch and release. He says things like that. That will resonate. Yeah. Hearing from Tony Godwin from an ABC show that was on 15 years ago talking about what he did as fake president, that doesn't work.
No, it really doesn't. And, of course, his thing today was appealing to people who voted for Nikki Haley to say, vote for me, don't give your votes to Donald Trump. I mean, I'm assuming that's another kind of power play which is not necessarily going to have any resonance.
Well, that's the thing, Mike. I mean, on Super Tuesday, which was, just 2 nights ago, the president should have gone out and done some sort of victory speech, I would think. Right. And instead, he's nowhere to be found. Right. And then he puts out a statement, right, which was written for him, of course, saying, Haley voters, come to me. Yeah. I don't know. I think that in the end, most Nikki Haley voters will come home if they understand that the alternative is 4 more years of Joe Biden, 86-year-old version of Joe Biden versus Donald Trump, which they may not like him personally, but they agree with him on policy. So I think the cows come home, so to speak, when the election comes, probably 98% of it.
And Trump, in contrast, has kind of offered a debating forum anytime, any place, anywhere to Joe Biden. Do you think there will ever be a debate between now and the end of the year?
Mike, I lament saying this, but I don't think there will. I think that Joe Biden will find an excuse and the media will cheer this on, where Biden says, I am above this man. I will not share a stage with him. I will not normalize an insurrectionist. Therefore, I will not debate. And the media will say, good, you took a stand. No. 80 million people in the United States watch the presidential debates. 4 times as much that will watch the State of the Union tonight. And again, no teleprompter this time. So that's why his handlers are petrified to put him out there in front of Donald Trump. If I'm Trump, I challenge him every day. Every day until Election Day, you say, let's debate anytime, anywhere, and we'll see who looks stronger. And that will be very telling if Biden ducks this, because I think that will be the nail in the coffin to the Biden campaign, because it will show he simply is not up for the job unless his words are written for him.
I think that's absolutely right. Joe Concha, reporting into us from New York, Fox News. Thank you very much indeed. That is the State of the Union
I like the tie, Mike. Very nice, by the way. You pulled that off.
Much.
I can't do pink. You can.
Thank you very much indeed.